Hey everyone, Livy here, back with another video. It is, well, at the time of me filming this is early September, but this is my August monthly musings, August 2024 monthly musing. I am talking about, I guess, everything related to life, to the books I read during the month of August, and my tarot practice during this time. And sorry, I'm like really tired right now. Part of that I'll get into, but really tired right now. So let me collect my thoughts a little bit. But yeah, it's August, or it was August, and I'm gonna talk about how that went. I'm gonna, as usual, I do start out with the life stuff, then I go into books, then I go into tarot. You can skip around every which way depending on what you prefer. If you want to hear everything too, that's also a-okay with me. But I'm going to start today with life stuff. Let me just get right into it. Okay. August. I feel like August started out with so much potential based on how July went. But unfortunately, it started to go downhill really, really quick. I shouldn't laugh, but it's like that's kind of what happened. Let me try to get into it. So August was a very busy month for me. I was already starting work back up again, and so there was a lot of work events related to that, like prepping for the school year, I should say. There's always, my work always makes us do a bunch of like work events to like welcome families into the new year, new school year, I mean. So there was a lot of stuff related to my work. Unfortunately, a lot of stuff started happening in the month of August that was not okay and started to derail me really quickly. In fact, I even had a tarot reading. I'll get into that, but well, maybe I should bring it up now. I had a tarot reading where basically one of my readings said that what would potentially derail me was the death card. And lo and behold, it was literal death. Somebody I knew from high school, without getting too much into it, somebody I knew from high school passed away. And I was shocked by how upset I was. I mean, I always get like this with death, but like, it's not like I was really close to him anymore. But there was a period of time where he was around, and so it was just really sad to hear that he had passed on. He was maybe, I don't know, he was maybe like 4 years older than me at most. So he was in his 30s when he passed on. And so that was just really like upsetting to hear, I guess, that he had passed. And that was very early in the month of August. So if grieving over somebody that you used to know and was, trying their best to survive despite illness and all this stuff wasn't bad enough, the school year started. And while the school year itself right now actually isn't that bad, like the kids themselves are not bad or anything like that, unfortunately, illness is going around really bad. In fact, it's mainly, I'll be honest, COVID. And even though I took a test, right, my work had like COVID tests. I'm pretty sure they were expired though. I took a test and it said I was negative. I am pretty sure I had COVID. Because that's what everyone else at my work is getting, and they're also sick. So yeah. I was sick, and that also, so besides grieving, right, I was derailed by illness, and that really sucked, because obviously, if you've had COVID, I mean, it's not like, I think I had a very mild version in comparison to some other people, okay? It didn't attack my lungs at all, but what I had was already bad enough. My throat closed up, I literally, like, lost my voice completely. And then I had like a fever for a few days, and then it started to affect my sinuses. So my sinus being infected caused like my throat to keep being dry, even though it was trying to get better. And so it was a nasty process. And basically I think still kind of recovering from that. My sinus is mostly better now, but yeah, it was messed up. So basically all this is to say, August started like it could have had potential, but quickly went downhill. So I tried to do some things in between, to try to bring some fun back into my life, you know. There were a couple day trips I did with my husband and his friends, like to fun places in the area. And I even had a tarot event, which, by the way, this was the most I do have to mention this. So this was awkward. One of my tarot events, because I had a few in August, my meetup. One of them was to a cafe, guys, where I did not realize when I decided to do the meetup there. I did not realize that this cafe was owned by, I think it was like either a Lutheran or Methodist church, whatever. I didn't realize they owned the whole building. There was a cafe right next to this. And so when they saw my sign, they were basically like, you need to take this sign down. This is a Methodist church. They don't want this. And I was like, oh, Jesus Christ. I did not realize, like literally like, oh no. And everyone at our event was like looking at each other wide-eyed, like, ooh, this is awkward. Luckily, they didn't kick us out, but we did have to take our sign down and be like very subtle. And that was awkward. I did not realize it at the time. You know, I've never been to this cafe. I just kind of booked it because it had like a big space for enough people to sit. But we were like, ooh, yeah, no, never again coming here. So that was that. That was awkward. But it's already, 6 minutes into this video. So I'm going to move on from life events. As you can see, it was kind of really shitty. So let's move on to the books I read, which, by the way, was not very much. Because life was awful, and because, you know, when you get sick and stuff, life just feels awful in general. I'll admit I didn't do much reading. I read 3 books. 2 of them were the last 2 at least the last 2 so far. They were like the original books of the series, so books 1 to 5 of Percy Jackson. I finished 4 and 5. And then I read another book. So let's start it though with the Percy Jackson, okay? The fourth book. This is what was this one? Oh yeah, The Battle of the Labyrinth. Okay. Of all the Percy Jackson books, I think this was my second favorite, The Battle of the Labyrinth. I feel like this story, and well, of course, my favorite so far was the second book, The Sea of Monsters, but I feel like this book was pretty much up there too in, feeling more cohesive of a story, feeling like there was less, time skippiness, although this book also faced issues with that. I'm going to say my whole overall thoughts on the Percy Jackson series after the 5th one, but yeah, this one felt a little more cohesive to me. It was very clear what was going on, what they were trying to prevent. The villain kind of this one felt more cohesive, just things that were going on. I felt like there was more character development with a lot of the characters involved. Like, it just felt like a better one. So this one is probably also like about that 4.5-ish rating that I did, I think, also for the Sea of Monsters. I did like this one. I did like the Battle of the Labyrinth. But then we get to the ending. So this was like what feels like the ending of the original Percy Jackson tales, right? This is the 5th one. This was The Last Olympian, and I have very mixed thoughts on this. I feel like I do like also because this one had that too. I feel like things were ramping up in the seriousness of like, there were people that were dying. There was a lot of risk factor involved and all this stuff. Okay, I understood. But there's something about this ending I'm still processing. Like, I feel like, I don't want to spoil too much if you haven't read the series, okay? But I feel like the way that this book ended, it makes sense. But at the same time, it was weird, the pacing of this one. I feel like in the beginning of the book, the pacing made sense. Like, it was slow enough where I was getting it, like they're doing battles, things are like they're trying to plan things. That made sense. But I feel like maybe it was the last, what do I even want to say? Was it the last, I feel like maybe the last 50 or so pages. I'm going to like check here how many pages. I want to say maybe it was like the last 50 pages or not even, where I just felt like all of a sudden it was rushed. And then I was like, whoa, wait, maybe that should have slowed down a little bit. Like, the final fight of this book happens, and I felt like it needed just slightly more depth, if that makes sense. So this one, like, the ending makes sense for what it was, but I felt like it needed a slight slowdown. So maybe this one was somewhere in like that 4 space. It wasn't like the worst. I still think the third one was probably my least favorite. I don't know. It's somewhere in that. So overall, what do I think of the Percy Jackson books that I read? I would say I feel like even when I was a kid, I feel like based on what I've read now and, processed of these, I feel like they were hyped up way more than they probably should have. Because it's not like, okay, I understand these books are geared towards middle grade readers. However, you need to understand I actually read middle grade books, so I understand it's that target audience. But there was something about the writing in here that didn't 100% land for me. Overall, between different books, there was always these crazy ass time skips that were never explained, never fleshed out, and just felt like big gaps in the plot line that needed to exist for me to believe Percy and his development just a little more. So I feel like if these books had come out now, I don't know if they would have been as successful. But because they were popular when they were and now have become as big as they are, obviously they're never going to go away. It's just, I think they could have definitely benefited from better execution between books, like at least some kind of explanation, even if it's just a paragraph of explanation talking about what happened between this one to get to this point. It would have definitely benefited the whole series as it was, because by the end of this book, Percy is 16 years old, and it's just such a weird time skip because he never felt like he really aged that much to me. I believed more that he felt like a 14-year-old by the end of the series, but he didn't feel like a 16-year-old, if that makes sense. So definitely a lot of missing pieces there. But yeah, this series for now is done. I don't know if I'll be reading books 6 and 7 as is, but now I can say that I finished these. But beyond that, what else did I read in the month of September? The last book I read happened to be this one. And August. The last book I read in August happened to be this one. This one, though, I finished very late. It's like I started in August and then finished early September, I'll admit, just because like life was happening, right? A lot of moving pieces. But this book is called Blackwater Sister, and this is by Zen Cho. This is a book that I think if I was to give it a rating, I would say, unfortunately, I think it was starting off as this would probably be like a 4.5. But something that happens near the end of the book definitely took it down to me to being a 4. Okay, this is like a 4. And I'm going to explain why. So this is a book, for those who don't know, Zen Cho is also the author of the Sorcerer and the Crown series. I guess it's a series. I don't know. I only read the first one. Didn't jive as much with that one. But this one seemed a lot more interesting to me because it's about a girl named Jessamine who her family was originally from Malaysia, but they're like Malaysian Chinese, and they had immigrated to America. She had lived most of her life, or all of her life really, in America, but then they went back to Malaysia because of her dad's illness, and also just like financially staying in America was not working for them. Her dad had lost his job and all this stuff. So they went back to Malaysia. It's when she's in Malaysia that she all of a sudden starts getting visited by the ghost of her estranged grandmother, right? She didn't really know her grandmother in life, but she starts to understand her in death because her grandma wants her to be her medium. So basically, Jessamine is able to, she finds out she's able to see and hear from spirits and gods, minor gods, and there's a lot of that interplay. So this is like a modern fantasy, I guess, is what you would put this into, or modern supernatural-ish story. Most of this book, I was really jiving with the plot, the pacing. Jessamine, she felt very real. Her family felt very real. And I liked the world that was being built here, especially in Malaysia. I don't know much about Malaysia, so it was just really interesting to read about, especially like the cultural dynamics, different languages that were spoken even in Malaysia. The different ethnic populations. This is just stuff I didn't really know. So it was really fascinating to read. The reason why I had to bring this book down a little bit in its rating was because of something that happens maybe within, I would say, the last 50 or so pages of the book. I don't want to give too much spoilers, but I will basically mention, because this is a big trigger, right, for some people, especially just something I really do not like reading in books, and so I'm really tired of reading books with this is you tried to use as a plot device, and that's why I brought it down in rating for me, is the main character here, without spoiling anything, she almost gets SA'd, okay, assaulted, and that way, and I'm sorry, but I am tired of reading books where female characters are just R'd or SA'd. And the fact that she almost did, or like was pretty close to it, or maybe slightly was, it's the way it's written, it's kind of vague. Anyways, it squeaked me out, and it wasn't frustrating because most of the book had already gone by. It was like pretty much almost over, and that happened, and it just frustrated me. I'm really tired of seeing books use so cheaply this device. Like, please be more original in what you think happens to characters. Just because characters are females does not mean that has to happen to them, okay? So it frustrated me, and so I had to bring the rating down of this book, but otherwise it was enjoyable. So yeah, is what it is. But that is Blackwater Sister by Zen Cho. Okay, everyone, let's move on to tarot and oracle and all that jazz for the month of August. I'm going to be honest. So my August card of the month, as you can see here, was the Chariot. And I kind of felt that a lot. As I expressed, I was ill a lot of the month and also grieving somebody that I used to know. And it showed in the Chariot because, a lot of the Chariot, I know a lot of people like to use the word determination with the Chariot. And to be honest, I see that more with strength. But I feel like for me, the Chariot is always about trying to balance things. Like, you're steering that horse and you're trying to make sure it's going in the right direction. And the thing with the Chariot is that I feel like I was just struggling. I don't know if I steered it necessarily on course or not. So some of that, that's it ended up being a little frustrating as it was. And it also showed because I'm using a lot of because here, but I was dealing with a lot the month. So I feel like not all of the tarot decks I used or wanted to use that month were very successful. So let's kind of talk about that, okay? First off, the first deck that I used during the month of August, that I think I used last August too, happened to be this one. This is the Sea Witch Tarot. Mademoiselle Dauphine or Willow White Raven, did it's like a mixed deck of some art. This deck is, I find, always very interesting. It is a pip deck. And as you can see with this card, it has an interesting mix of like, how do I show you this? Like, because I'm putting it up as close as I can or want to do. But anyways, it's like this style, which is cool. And these are the backs, which I also think are interesting. But then you'll get cards that are more like this. And this is cool. But then you have this. And you're just like, oh God. And at first I thought this style of pip maybe wouldn't bother me because it's intermixed with these. But the problem is that like these are very random in comparison to these. And I'm finding personally that if the whole deck was just this style, I would like this deck a lot more. And I would probably be using it more. And I would say, yeah, this is like, because stylistically, this is like a deck I like. But these fucking pips, I'll admit, are not, they're not doing it for me. Okay? They're not pips with feelings. I don't like white space decks as is. So I basically used this deck once and then found myself very annoyed with it and did not use it the rest of the month. So what does that mean for this deck? It probably means that this deck is going to go into my purgatory bin. That's unfortunate because, again, I do like the style. I like that it's more oceanic-like, and I keep trying to find like ocean decks that I think are like the best for me. But I'm just getting frustrated with the pips in this. It's just too much in a way that I don't like. And for that reason, this deck is going to move on. So it is what it is. But yeah, this one, the Sea Witch Tarot. But you know what other deck I was going to use this month and then just noped the fuck out of and did not actually use at all this month? Was this one. This is the Journey Tarot by Tegan Turner. I am making that clear because somebody, I don't remember who, somebody in my comments got kind of upsetty spaghetti. They're like, oh, you were not clear about who this was. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to tell you right now. His name is Tegan Turner. I got this misprint. Misprint, I guess, it was a smaller price than this deck's originally worth. I only paid 30 USD for it because the coloring of this deck apparently is slightly off in this edition. So I'll flip through it a little bit, but yeah, I decided not to use this deck. I was going to use it. And here's the thing. I love the artwork. Like this, images like this vaguely remind me of things like A Series of Unfortunate Events, like a lot of storybooks I've read. I even have a whole video where I talk about this deck and books that I think relate to it, which is funny. But here's the thing about having this deck in front of me in person, okay? Even though the scenery is so beautiful, it's some of the colors, maybe it's the misprint colors or something. I don't like cards like this. I don't like this bright green. Something about it is very unsettling for me. And because a lot of the deck feels like it has like that off green color, I found myself not wanting to use this. I was like, nope. And also, as you can see, this deck has nudity. Now, here's the thing. I'm very like 50-50 on if I'm going to like a deck for its nudity. I normally do not. It just depends on how it's drawn, I guess, the way it's done and all of that jazz about if I will like it or not. And unfortunately, as I was looking through some of the cards with the more nudity in them, I found myself just getting really freaking annoyed. And so I did not use this deck. So if you're wondering, yes, this one is also going to the purgatory. I just need to be more mindful about what decks I bring in, I think, from now on. Because even though this deck, again, it has some like nice scenic things, I think this would be good for like storytelling or using maybe as prompts for like writing. I don't know. I just don't find myself wanting to read with it. Like, especially this card, like just the greenness of it. I don't like the greens. So for that reason, I think this one also needs to get passed along, because I just did not want to use it at the end of the day, and it is what it is. But let's now go into decks that I actually did attempt to use more, I guess. The first one I could say was, oh, there actually is another one I didn't use. I guess I'll talk about that next, which is this one. This is the Nemeth Tarot. This is by Jonasa Yaus. And here's the thing. It's not that I don't like the imagery on this one. Nothing to do with that. I think the reason why, here are the backs. It's a little bigger too. But part of the reason why I think I decided I did not want to use this deck had to do more with me deciding that I need the guidebook for this deck. You guys will know I did a whole video on my channel about this deck. I talked about the things I did recognize. And then so it's like, it's not that I don't recognize everything, like especially this card. This is literally Portuguese, right? In origin, as much as it is Galician. It's not that I don't recognize some of these things. It's just I found myself wanting to dive deeper into this deck. So I stopped myself from using this one because I want a guidebook. I need very clearly the idea of why this card is tied to, why this thing is tied to this card. You know what I mean? I need more from this, before I actually think of using it. Because I do want to dive into this. It feels, like I talked about in my other video, it feels very ancestral. There are some things I do recognize. But it's just, I don't know. I didn't want to do a reading with this without like understanding the full context of the deck. You know, does that make sense? I think so. So yeah, I also did not use the Nemeth Tarot. But let's talk about what I actually did use more than the decks that were flopping in the month of August, okay? I did use the Morgan Greer, okay? Well, I used at least for one or so readings. I used the Morgan Greer. And, you guys know I got this deck last year. So, and here's the backs. This is, as you can see, the tin version of this deck. What else could I really say that I haven't already said about this one? I don't know. This is a deck that, a lot of people know of already. It's made the rounds. It's been around. It's older of a deck. There's not really much else I could contribute to the conversation of it. It works. It reads well. There's just something about this one that always feels like August for me. I don't know how to explain it. I guess it's just got those colors where it feels like the ending of summer, but you're ramping towards the beginning of fall. Like it has just that weird color scheme for me that I knew it would make sense to work with this deck in August. So I did. I did at least 1 week ahead reading with this one. Again, I don't really have problems with this deck. I like that it is travel size though, so it works for that. I like that I could just pick it up, take it, go wherever. The US Games tins, I think, are still some of the best, to be honest. They're very sturdy. Nothing happens to those decks if they're in that tin. So, yeah, the Morgan Greer. That was another one I used this month. But it was not the most successful decks I used. So I kind of do want to talk about those, okay? There were 2 decks I feel like I used the most when it comes to tarot. And then there's obviously my Oracle deck of the month, which I do think, interestingly, was the most successful deck of the month of August. But let's start with some tarot that I knew was successful. We're going to start right now with this beauty. This is the Peculiar Pathways Tarot. Why did I slur that? Jesus. The Peculiar Pathways Tarot. I don't know why I'm suddenly losing my ability to talk. But anyways, this deck. Love this deck. Look at the beautiful, like, minty, sagey green edging. Beautiful. These backs, beautiful. Cardstock, beautiful. It's linen, so, and it has a good bend. It's flexible. It goes back. I love this deck. I used it this month, and it was exactly those late summer or springish vibes to this deck. It felt right. And I used this deck for quite a few readings. The artwork is stunning. For those who are wondering, this is pretty close to the RWS. It comes with a bigger guidebook, which, let me see. Is it by me? It might be by me. Yes. Ta-da. This one. Wonders and Wanderings. It comes with this big guidebook. And as you can see, it does comparisons to like the deck itself and the original RWS. It has keywords, has big full body things. This goes details into like what's compared. It's just really great of a guidebook. Lennox, I think, really hit this one out of the park. Okay. This was a great one. And I enjoyed it. I think it did pretty accurate readings. The only thing I found, like, I love the style of this deck, and I did have like good readings with it. But the only thing I found was because it follows the RWS closer, I found that while I loved it, I didn't always... And I did read a lot with it. I think like especially this 10 of Wands is like amazing. There's something about this one that I just really like the imagery of. But because it follows a little closer to the RWS, I did find that I was less wanting to always reach this for this one this month or this past month, because there's something about like even though it's not clearly, it has like a lot of deviations in some ways because it follows the RWS so closely. It almost is like an RWS clone. And I'll be honest, I don't always reach for those 100% all the time. I kind of like, I tend to like decks that are more different. Not that I don't have RWS clones. I'm just saying like that's my overall thing with RWS clones. I use them sparingly. I use them when I feel like it'd be good to. They're great to read for others. I think this would be a great deck actually to read for other people, despite not having people in this deck, because it follows RWS so closely. But like when it comes to more readings I want to do for myself for deeper knowledge or deeper wisdom, I wouldn't always reach for an RWS clone. I want something that shows the meanings in a more artistic way. Not to say that this isn't artistic. Let me clear that up. This deck is very creative. It's rarely good collage. I like that it doesn't have people. I like that it's doing something different. I'm not saying this is not creative. I just mean like because it's more closer in line to the RWS that you could almost categorize it as like a slightly above a clone. It's just not as deviated away in imagery. There we go. For me to always want to reach for this. Not to say that this isn't good, because I loved using this. This was amazing. I just found that I reached for a different deck a lot more when it came to more personal readings. So I use these for like week ahead readings, I think a couple times. I don't remember if I did a different... Oh, I did do an interview, though. This is going to be a good deck, too, for other specific work. But even in the interview, this told me it'd be more a deck for, like, other things, not so much personal. So let me show you what I used for more personal readings during the month of August. And it actually shocked me, because this was not a deck... this was not a deck I originally picked out for this month. But I ended up using more, and that's like baffling. It's this one, guys. Can you believe? This is my Prisma Visions Tarot in a tin. This deck was the one that for some reason I gravitated to and wanted with me when I went to work, when I felt like I needed to do some more personal readings. It was this one. As you can see, the mini in a tin has this like, I don't know if the full size does, but it has like the silver shiny edging. But the cardstock itself is a nice matte that I love. I actually do really like the size of this. This deck, this is what I ended up using the most for my most painful readings I feel like I did during the month of August. I do not know why. I was suddenly, again, I did not pick this deck originally as an August deck. I did not. But for some reason, I wanted this in my bag when I went to work, August long. I wanted it close to me. I wanted to do readings with it. And it was unfortunately while using this deck that I had a reading in which the thing it told me would derail me was the death card. And if I can find that death in here, I'm going to show you. But it was literally talking about a literal death. And it did. It got me. It derailed me. It made things difficult for the rest of the month. And that can sometimes be painful. You could almost say it's like, well, then why were you reaching for this? You know, like this pain point is coming at you. Why did you want that? And I guess it's because I was feeling a lot of big feelings that I guess I did need this deck, you know? Maybe that's why it called out to me. It wanted to tell me something. It wanted to be real with me. It was very accurate, by the way. That reading, it was kind of painful. And so I've noticed with this deck when I do read for it, it gives a lot of heightened emotions for me. I don't know if anybody else has ever had that experience with this deck. Like, I don't know how many. I know this is one of those that a lot of people either love or they've said, nope, not for me, and they moved it on. But this is one of those decks. I told you guys, this is one of those decks. Like, it was love at first sight when I saw the artwork, but it's become one of those decks where it accesses some weird part of my brain that's like slightly in mourning, but slightly annoyed. I don't know how to explain it. But it was a lot. Wow. Where is it? I'm getting straight to the point. This death was the one that was literal. And that's unfortunate, but it happens. I think in response to this happening, and somebody else I know in like a Discord where something happened, I'm not going to out them, but they also had a moment where some tarot cards were being very literal. I think I need to do a video about what to do when the cards are exactly as bad as they seem. Because the fucked up thing is, it does happen. And people don't always like to talk about that. We like to gloss it over a lot. And I think it needs to be something talked about. So I think I will be doing a video on that soon. So keep an eye on that. It might be very depressing. If you're not in a good mental place, you might not want to watch that one, because I feel like there's just a lot that needs to be said in relation to that topic. But I ended up using this one a lot during the month of August. So the Prism of Visions Tarot ended up being very successful for me. And as a last footnote, I also use this all of one time, the Starseeker Tarot, because when I had one of my tarot events, I decided this was the deck I needed to take with me, because the wands in this deck are by far the best. Out of any deck I've seen, this is one of the best. And so because the event was talking about the wands, I brought this deck with me, and then I did one reading with it, which was very accurate also. So just a little shout out for the Starseeker, even though this was not originally also a deck I was supposed to be using in the month of August. So what does August tell you? I basically avoided my actual pile of decks I was supposed to want to use, and I used other ones instead, except for this next one. The last deck of this video was my Oracle. So this, in the month of August, sorry, water break, pause. In the month of August, I use Seasons of the Witch Lammas. And just like Mabon, this deck fucking got me straight to the damn soul. I don't know what it is. Listen, guys, I'm not going to collect the whole series. I'm going to tell you that right now. I'm not going to collect the whole series. I know this is mean. These are the backs, by the way, edging and stuff. I know it's mean, but the old artist who did, I think, maybe the first 3 decks in this series, the Seasons of the Witch, I didn't like that artist's style. So no, I probably am not going to get those decks that artist did. And I got this card a couple times, or once, by the way, and that was a very powerful thing, this Leo one. But I'm not going to get all of them. But this one got to me. This one was the deck that I needed exactly when I did, because the cards in here were so powerful. Like this one, I'm pretty sure I got the craftsmanship card once or twice. I got a few of these a couple time repeating. This deck is so good. It's just like the Mabon run, okay? If you know what I'm talking about, you know, because that one is also very good. This one just had the exact right messages that I needed to hear at the time. Oh, this one. No, this card. Okay, I got this a couple times. So as you can see, it says weeds, and it says neglecting to address the weeds within will prevent you from abundantly receiving. Yes. I was in a dark place, guys. Remember, I was in mourning and also sick. And yeah, I felt that. I felt that a lot, and this card kept coming up a couple times. So it got me, right? And this card came up. I had this one. And tied with craftsmanship, which was interesting. But this deck, as you can see, such beautiful artwork. The colors feel so much like this time of year. It made sense as an August deck because Lammas, you know, was the first day of August. It was perfect. It was exactly what I needed. And the way I used it was simple. I literally just pulled one card almost every day during August, and it's just what I needed. I also had this card maybe once or twice, Coneflower, draw strength from within and protect yourself fiercely. It's time to reclaim your power, right? So some of these cards just told me exactly what I needed to know. And I don't know, there's something about them. I'm getting kind of emotional thinking about it, but they're so beautiful. And here's the other thing. Sometimes with oracles, I feel like people, they want to use them exactly like how you do tarot. And they want to pull 5 million bajillion cards together. And I think this deck reminded me that you don't need to actually do that. You can pull one card and it could be just as profound. And I think that's what these decks, to be honest, are the best at. One card pulls. I think they could also be powerful. I didn't try this, but I think these cards could also be powerful. Like, say, you pull one central message. Oh, funny enough, it's a Leo. You pull one central message and then like put other cards like tarot around it. I think that might be very cool. But I think, honestly, if you just get one message out of this, that's its best use. And the reason why I say that, too, is, as you can see, I have small hands. These cards are almost bigger than my hands, right? They're wider. They're oracle size. You have too many of these at once, and the messages can get kind of jumbled, especially because, as you can see, this is formatted in a way where there's just a title and your message here. So it's just the way that the deck is set up. I think it benefited the most from me and felt most impactful as one card pulls. But others might see it, you know, differently. But this deck was the best probably for the month. The most healing, I think. The most what I needed in August, because everything else was just going to hell. And I'm going to be forever grateful for it. You guys will see, or I might say this, spoilers. I did get one other deck of Seasons of the Witch that's been out so far. Same artist as this one. I'll probably show that in a video very soon, so you guys will know which one that is. But I've just had really good luck with the ones I've decided to pick. I will say I'm not going to get Litha at this time. I feel like it's kind of redundant with this one. To be honest, they seem to have very similar vibes, but I just didn't like some of the phrasings on the Litha ones that I saw. So this one worked for me. a lot, and I do recommend this. So if you've had your eye on this one, I say this one could be very profound and healing. But anyways, wow, that was a lot. I'm going to leave now and hope that September brings better things. At the time of me filming this, it's not quite so, but I'll have more to talk about at the end of the month. But if you've watched so far, all this, thank you so much for watching. And yeah, I'll see you again next time. Bye.